Welcome back again. Tonight in our evening edition one-on-one, we have a special interview with former head of IDF Intelligence General Amos Yadlin. After completing over 40 years of service in the Israeli Defense Forces, Yadlin is currently the director of Israel's Institute for National Security Studies at the Tel Aviv University. He has played several significant roles in Israeli anti-nuclear strikes in the past. He was one of the 8 pilots who conducted Operation Oprah, which destroyed Iraq's Syrian nuclear reactor in 1981, and was head of IDF intelligence during the September 2007 strike against Syria's secret nuclear plant deep in the countries, and played a central role in observing and assessing the Iranian nuclear development in the past decade. As Israel and the Palestinians resumed direct negotiations, the international community observed the newly elected Iranian president, and Egypt reaches a boiling point. Yadlin spoke to I24news diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev on all of these burning issues. Let's see.
General Yadlin, thank you for agreeing to talk to us. Israel and the Palestinians are meeting today for the second time. From your impression, do you think Netanyahu is serious about this process? Did you get the impression that he's willing to make hurtful concessions?
No doubt that the Prime Minister is serious. He spoke in Bar Ilan and lately about the need for a two-state solution, the need to reach peace with the Palestinians. I think that your question whether he can reach a peace agreement, putting all the onus on him, and this is absolutely not the right way to look at it. We need two for tango. It all depends whether the Palestinians will be willing to reach an agreement, and on what parameters the Prime Minister can agree, and which parameters he will be unable to agree. The assessment of the INSS is that the chances for a peace agreement at the end of the 9 months are very low. And it has to do with the two sides. Each one of them, the maximum he can give is not enough for the minimum the other side need for going to referendum that we are now having on both sides to approve the agreement.
Just days before the resumption of talks, Israel announces 2 major big plans of building in East Jerusalem and the settlement blocks. Do you think these announcements, the settlement building, does this help the negotiations?
I think it has to do with the precondition for resuming the negotiation. There was a deal there. Once again, Israel gave its part. 104 murderers that were sentenced for life on killing Israelis, terrorists, were released. This was not easy for the Prime Minister in the Israeli public. The Palestinians knew, and Secretary of State Kerry confirmed it today in Brazil, that part of the deal was that Israel is not agreeing to freeze the settlement. So if you take the issue that the building that was announced was part of the deal, and only in areas that everybody understands will be part of Israel, I don't see it as an obstacle to the negotiation.
There have been many talks in the past days, but that there's some kind of linkage between Netanyahu's willing to resume negotiations and his willingness to resume negotiations and his preparations to some Israeli attack in Iran. Do you agree that there is this kind of linkage?
I think this is 2 issues that are orthogonal. Each of them is very important, but the linkage is very weak. However, when you think about the 4 parameters of, I will call it a precondition for Israeli action against Iran, you need to have a very deep analysis, basically saying that the Iranian bomb is more dangerous than attacking Iran. Second, you should have and operational capability to achieve the operational goal. Then you need legitimacy, and you need the support or at least understanding of the United States. So this is the right timing. All the other options were exhausted. So if I take number 3 about the legitimacy, most of the legitimacy should be drawn from the Iranian behavior and the fact that Iran is continuing to develop nuclear weapons. But some of it comes from the position of Israel in the international community, and here you have the weak linkage, but it's weak.
So we'll move on to Iran. You talked about exhausting all the options. A few months ago, you said Iran has already crossed the red line that Netanyahu put by Netanyahu in the UN in September. And then last week, you stated that the US is no longer giving a red light to an Israeli attack on Iran, but rather you defined it as a yellow light. So do you think the international community and Israel, as part of it, has exhausted all the options? Do you think the time has come for an Israeli attack in Iran?
It's a very good opportunity to correct a wrong headline, because I didn't say America is now transmitting a yellow light. I said that there is now a period of negotiation because of the new president in Iran. And this time of negotiation should be limited. There must be a deadline, but a couple of months ahead there will be negotiation. After the negotiation will fail, if they will fail, because if there is an agreement, there is no need for an attack. But if negotiation fail, then I feel that the Americans will change the red light to a yellow light. But this is not happening already today. By the way, Israeli action against Iran is not necessarily depend on a green light from America. Israel have done it in the past without a green light. But when the Americans are lighting red light, it's a very significant issue to be considered.
Do you feel that the election of Hassan Rouhani for the new Iranian president, he's perceived as a relatively moderate? Do you think this is maybe fooling the West? Is it blinding the West away from Iran's real intentions?
Rouhani is not moderate, is not liberal, is not reformist. The liberals and reformists in Iran are in house arrest, in jail. The semi-reformists, the quite moderate, were not allowed to run. Everybody who were allowed to run by the supreme leader is not a moderate. He is working for the supreme leader and will do whatever the supreme leader will say. However, Rouhani is a very good negotiator, and he is serving the Iranian purpose to have a nicer faces, smiley faces. And the Iranian people vote for him because out of the 8 candidates that the supreme leader approved, he was the only one, who criticized the Iranian behavior and policy on the nuclear issue. And he promised that both the centrifuges and the economy should run. So we have to test him. We have to see whether he will change Iran's position. And that's why I'm calling for negotiation with him. But I'm saying there is not a long time for that. And my expectation, my analysis is saying that he is not going to change the Iranian behavior.
But you've been watching the system, and you've been part of the system for many years. And about the Iranian issue, if Iran is so close to producing a bomb, who's to blame? What went wrong?
I think the international community underestimates the determination of Iran and the capabilities of Iran. And for many, many years, they basically have said, it is too early, don't worry, the Iranians are far away. And we, the Israelis, we always told them, you know, you are saying it's too early, and one day you will say too late. So moving from it's too early, there is a lot of time, to a too late, has to do with the Iranian strategy. Because as I say, the Iranian strategy was to stay under the umbrella of legitimacy, to sell the narrative, to market the narrative that this is a civilian program. And this helped the Russian, the Chinese, to say there is no problem there. The Iranians are not advancing. The Iranians are not intending to produce nuclear weapons. And this argument is still there. And those who are helping the Iranians to sell the narrative, this is the people that should be blamed.
President Obama declared last August that Syria will cross a red line from the U.S. point of view when chemical weapons are used. We have had many accounts since then of chemical weapons usage. What is the meaning of red lines if they're not kept?
I absolutely recommend not to use red line. Red lines has three problematic merits. One, that everything that below the red lines is legitimatized. So is 100,000 people that were killed in Syria not by chemical weapon is a legitimate move? No. Red lines have the tendency to allow people to bypass them. As I say, in Iran. So maybe the Iranians are not enriching above 20%, but they have much more centrifuges and fossil materials that can be reached very quickly to the bomb. And red lines give your opponent the opportunity to choose the timing that they want to cross the red line. Timing that you are unable to stand behind your threats. So red lines are not recommended. The second issue is what is the message to Iran from what is done in Syria? Because the Iranians, when they see that the US military option is not credible, this is not helpful for reaching a diplomatic resolution that we all looking for. Because if the military option is not credible, and Syria is, in a way, a message. We are not serious. We are not rushing to stand behind our words. I think this is not helpful. If we are thinking about the coming negotiation with Iran, there are two leverages that in the past proved to be very effective vis-à-vis the Iranians to bring them into a diplomatic solution. One is a tough and effective sanctions, and the other is a threat of a military attack. In 2003, this is the only time in history that they have freezed and suspended the nuclear program. Why? Because at that time, the American military option was very credible, and you can see it with your eyes in Afghanistan and Iraq, two neighbors of Iran. And President Bush gave the impression that after Iraq, it will be Iran. At that time, the Iranians agreed to stop the program. So what I'm calling for is go to the negotiation, but in the same time, remember what brought Rouhani to the negotiation? Sanctions. What brought Rouhani when he was the chief negotiator in 2003 to agree to freeze the program was the military presence in Afghanistan and Iraq.
Do you feel that Egypt is descending into an ungovernable chaos and turning into a failed state as it looks now?
I don't think so. I think the revolution in Egypt that were led by the people in Tahrir, the liberals, the young people, secular women, Coptics, patriotic Egyptians that ended the time of dictatorship were unable to win the election. And in a way, the revolution was hijacked by the Muslim Brotherhood. What is happening today in Egypt is that millions, much more than voted for Morsi, went to the street in July, first week of July, last week of June, and say, the one who take Egypt into chaos, the one who is unable to deliver is Morsi. We want a change. And now it's the post-change confrontation between the Muslim Brotherhood and the new government that, in my view, should bring Egypt back on track. because Egypt is not in, and I agree with you, is not in a good shape.
And you think Egypt has the power to get back to that track?
I hope so, because Egypt, unlike Syria, is a coherent country. It's a very old country with a very respected history and tradition, and they will overcome. I think they will overcome.
So on this optimistic note, I thank you very much. Thank you for talking to us.
And all the success with your new project.
Shalev, thank you very much for this interesting conversation with Amos Yadlin. And we are here finishing our evening edition, the one-on-one. Tomorrow we will be here at the same time, same place. After us, there's Press Arena with Hadass Sinai. Don't go anywhere. From the Jaffa Port, have a great night.